People ask me, what about the Red Sea crossing? I mean, if a whole army crossed the Red Sea, there ought to be some evidence of this. Wouldn't you find evidence for the Bible being true? Well, in Exodus 14, it says they're going to encamp by the sea where God commanded them to. Exodus 14 tells us that when they went across, the waters, they went on dry ground, and the water was a wall on the right hand and on the left hand. So they're not wading across shallow water. There is actually a miracle. They're down in the sea with the water as a wall on both sides. Interesting. It says God took off the chariot wheels of the Egyptians. That's what the Bible says in Exodus 14. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. All right. Well, if you look at the country of Egypt, to the right side is the Red Sea. It has two branches to it. The left branch is the Gulf of Suez. The right branch is the Gulf of Aqaba. In between is what is often called the Sinai Peninsula. Phoenician princess pointed at a mountain one day and said, I think that's Mount Sinai. She had no clue where Mount Sinai was, but she said that's Mount Sinai. Everybody calls it Mount Sinai even today, but it's not Mount Sinai. It can't be, as we'll see in a minute. Apparently the children of Israel followed this red line out of Egypt all the way across what is now called the Sinai Peninsula and crossed over at the Gulf of Aqaba. I got this information from Ron Wyatt and Richard Reeves, who spent years over there researching this. There's a dry riverbed where that red line is that flows right up and ends up at the Gulf of Aqaba. Here you see it, the Gulf of Aqaba in the distance there, and there's actually a pathway between the mountains, very rugged terrain. It ends up on this beach right there where the arrow's pointing. This is a satellite view kind of from the north, and that is actually a giant beach, able to hold several million people. No way to flee north or south, because once you get out there, you are flat stuck. Okay, there's mountains all around, a little valley that you just came through, and no place to get out. Apparently the children of Israel got trapped there with Pharaoh's army closing in the gap behind them. At the south end of this beach, many years ago, Ron and his sons found a pillar, and they dragged it out and scrubbed it off, and they could only read a few words on it, mostly pretty eroded, but they found another pillar just like it on the other side in Arabia, in Saudi Arabia. And the pillar said this was erected by King Solomon to commemorate the crossing of the Red Sea. The maps of the depth of the water there are interesting. There's called the Eilat Deep. I went swimming in and went down to visit Eilat, Israel, where it comes down and touches the Red Sea here. It's about 5,000 feet deep in here in the Gulf of Aqaba, except for this one spot where it's only 900 feet deep. There's a natural underwater land bridge. It's about 8 miles wide and only 900 feet deep. A friend of mine, Aaron, went over there and said, look, folks, this is absolutely correct. The Israeli bathymetric chart says this is only 900 feet deep here. And some people are criticizing Ron Wyatt, saying it's not true. There's not a bridge there. Yes, there is an underwater land bridge. So Ron and his sons went out there scuba diving out as deep as they could go, 150 feet or so, and found chariot wheels with no chariots attached and chariots with no wheels attached. They found rib cages of humans, rib cages and hooves of animals that are fossilized, not fossilized, but covered with coral. You can go to the museum in Cornersville, Tennessee, south of Nashville, about 50 miles, and I think it's exit 27, and there's a converted gas station right there, which is the Wyatt Museum, and see these things for yourself. See the horse hoof all dried up and dehydrated. The 18th dynasty in Egypt is the only one to use the 8-spoke, 6-spoke, and 4-spoke chariot wheels, and all of those are found at the bottom. On the right side over here, you'll see a mountain called Jabal al-Laws, which means mountain of laws, and that is Mount Sinai. The Bible says in Galatians 4, Sinai is in Arabia. Why are they looking for it in the Sinai Peninsula? It's not even there. It can't be. Apparently this is Mount Sinai, black on top. Whether that's from the burning or not, I don't know, but it could be that it actually burned and melted the rocks on top. At the bottom of this mountain, there's a bunch of rocks with this one has a calf drawn on it. They think probably this is the altar they built with the calf. Exodus 20, God told them to smite the rock and water would come out for the people to drink. Most Bible pictures show a little stream of water coming out. They had several million people plus their animals. They're not going to feed them with a stream of water like that. It's not going to work. It had to be water gushing out of there. Actually, it had to be a river. There's this big boulder you can see here in the background. This is as big as a 5-story building. It is split right in half, completely in half, and on both sides there are erosion marks. This may be the rock that Moses smote, and the water came gushing out of both sides. A river flowed out and watered everybody. Okay, people say, what about Sodom and Gomorrah? Where's that at? Well, the Lord said in Genesis 19, He would rain upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone. Brimstone is burning sulfur. If you look at this map of the Dead Sea, you can see there are 5 spots: Zeboam, Admah, Gomorrah, Sodom, and Zoar. These apparently are where the cities were, of those 5 cities that were burned. When I was on top of Masada in March of 2002, I went over to Israel. You can look down from the top of Masada and see a square, which is apparently where Sodom was. The city's all burned. You don't even tell it's a city until you get very far away from it. It's mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 29, and mentioned in Genesis chapter 14 about the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboam, and these guys got in trouble, and basically the Lord had to judge their cities here. So apparently those are the 5 cities that burned. If you go to get up real close to this thing, you realize actually if you look at the walls, those look like just ash cliffs, but the closer you get, the more you realize, man, that's a city that was burned. And the bricks have actually turned to ash. Peppered in that ash, there are thousands, actually millions of sulfur balls. I've got some right here on the table. These are actually pieces of 99% sulfur. The outside is kind of a white color, but if you break it open, it's a little more yellow inside. It apparently it burned itself out. Golf ball size, variety of size. It literally rained sulfur on that city. In the ash, which is apparently burned brick, there are little indentations where the sulfur balls are. The one fell out of here. There's one piece of one over here. This is a piece of ash from that area, and many folks, including myself, think this is the actual Sodom and Gomorrah, and we have the physical evidence for it. It literally burned the cities to ash. This may be what's called a ziggurat or something to guard the opening at the city, and Ron Wyatt and Richard Reeves spent a lot of time over there and are very convinced, as am I, that this is Sodom and